Waiting.
Oh,
Now,
there it goes.
Nick Hannon, Sons of Alpha Centauri, sir.
How's it
Welcome
going?
to Pulse of the Maggots. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good, thanks. Right on. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for hopping on a little bit. I know this show is mainly for like up and coming bands or things like that, bands that people don't really know a whole lot about. But I mean, you guys have been around for about 20 years, but given just like the output and everything like that, I know that on every album cycle, there are always new opportunities for people to be finding your music and everything like that. So welcome aboard, my friend.
Thanks very much for having me. Good to see you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, likewise. Cori, I think you wanted to start off this with a question because we had very similar thoughts and ideas.
Oh, we did have really similar thoughts and ideas for these guys. Mm-hmm. Oh, geez, but now I forgot what my question was.
Do you want me to give you a hint?
I had it written down. Dang it. Yeah, what was my question?
It was about side projects and about the different outputs and everything like that.
Oh, yes, you do a lot of collaborations. You've got a lot of side projects going on. You got, you're just kind of building in so many different areas. And one, I wanted to know, how do you find the balance of all of that? And two, actually, no, let's just start with one. How do you find the balance and how do you choose like which projects you're going to take onto your plate? Because there's a lot going on.
Yeah, thanks. It's trying to create that balance between I suppose in the 90s there were so many different little scenes going on that you could get into. You could get into post-hardcore, you could get into, stoner rock was going on, there was all of the grunge stuff going on, there was alt metal going on, there was so many different things going on. It was important to try and captivate and investigate all the little bands and the ones that became bigger from the scene. So what we've tried to do is try to sort of integrate that into the band, so it's more there's a much wider spectrum of stuff that we're into that we can bring under one umbrella of Sons of Alpha Centauri and still work with a large number of people and cover all of those different genres. And it's about sort of trying to link them together, kind of a bit like, I don't know, the cinematic universes that you get now. It's trying to make sure that they all eventually start to fit together and that it creates this sort of one big story arc. But it is a balance of saying, well, okay, we've not done a record for a while here, and bands change and they've all got different sort of schedules. So yeah, it is a challenge to try and keep all these different plates spinning and to try and feel that it's evolving whilst making sure we're not leaving anything behind that doesn't feel finished yet.
And John, I'm sure you have a follow-up to that one.
I do have a follow-up, actually. This is a question I was going to have later, but we kind of broached the topic now. When you are, in your laboratories, like coming up with riffs, coming up with ideas, songs, and stuff like that, I'm curious on what differentiates, like, say, Sons of Alpha Centauri song or riff or idea or something like that versus, any of the other, innumerable projects that you might have. Is there something? Is there like an ethos that Sons of Alpha Centauri has that may not jive with some other things, or is it just kind of like, I don't know, you guys decide when it's there?
It starts to sort of refine itself. I mean, the band is riff driven, so it's still got all the propensity of hardcore and metal and rock, and I think they're the sort of key components when we start going, this is starting to feel like an SOAC things. When it starts to drift into different, into say like ambient music, or if it starts to drift into something where the riff probably isn't the core component, then that's when we probably start to think, actually, there's still something building here, but it's how we want to deliver the riff and make it interesting, because there's a lot of ways that the riff can get pummeled too much, and it's trying to keep it sort of captivating. So I think that's probably like the core component, and the orchestration that goes around that is probably the main thing that's evolved.
Yeah, and speaking of that, so you just mentioned that your music is very riff driven, and famously, y'all were an instrumental band for so many years, and the big headline for this album, obviously, which we're going to get into now, is how you brought on collaborators to come and actually like sing and deliver vocal performances on this album and stuff like that. You did mention just a couple minutes ago about how you're always looking to see if like anything hasn't been left behind, or you're evolving in a certain way. So I'm curious on like when y'all decided to take that step with your band, and like what was the kind of decision-making process around that?
It was one of those steps where we were fortunate enough to work with two landmark landmark instrumental bands with Karma to Burn and Yawning Man, and we were able to express and find, you know, the different elements that they brought to develop that whole sort of instrumental genre. So when we sort of explored it with them, we're like, how are we going to do it? And we did, you know, our last record was a fully instrumental sort of progressive piece and almost like a sort of a space opera kind of thing. And then after that, once we sort of were looking at going back into the studio, bringing in the lab, bringing the riffs together, we started to feel that there was a pounding drive and that sort of more post-hardcore, almost metal element sort of driving back into us. And that was when we thought, actually, if we were to refine these, which is sometimes it's easier to make songs longer, but to bring them to shorten them down and make it really interesting and captivating is certainly, you know, to make space as well for vocals and harmonies. That was a real challenge. And we felt, right, we're ready for this challenge now, but we needed the right person and the right partner to come on board to make that happen. And we're so glad that we were able to do that.
Yeah, Cori, did you want to jump in?
Actually, that jumps in right into the other question that we had that was pretty similar, is the addition of vocals into, you know, your new music and how it's kind of increased the accessibility of your music. And I wanted to go more into the thought process behind all of that, go deeper into, was that intentional? Mm-hmm. Were you trying to make the music more accessible, or was it just another challenge, like you were saying, or another layer that you wanted to add?
I think initially that's a great question, because, you know, retrospectively it's where we subliminally trying to make something more accessible, having, you know, felt that we'd pushed so far into instrumental music. And I think we felt that having, you know, channeled so many riffs and so much sort of underground kind of rock music, that just by bringing and integrating an established vocalist through Jonah, that it would make us ensure that we kept relating to the music in a way that felt fresh to us. And if it felt fresh to us, we wanted it to feel fresh to, you know, the people that were into the band, but equally for other people that, you know, hadn't maybe, you know, had access to the band previously. And as I mentioned, with the whole sort of scenes thing, the Sacramento vibe was a thing for us, you know, when I think it was like Around the Fur dropped, and then there were all these bands coming from Sacramento, and people were like, who are Far, who are Will Haven, you know, all these bands that were around that. You know, we really deep dived into that and loved all the different scene that was going on. So to sort of bring that together with SOAC, that we knew would certainly win, you know, because we loved it, we knew that other people would love it, because we got a real affection and affinity for it. And I think that the people that hopefully that have gravitated towards it have done so sort of to think it's not a nostalgia thing, it's sort of recognizing something that has, you know, reputability, and then creating something that feels new and fresh from a band that have been working for the past 20 years, which is pretty much the same amount of time that we, you know, when we were first exposed to those bands. So yeah, that was, I think it wasn't a conscious decision to do that. We just knew that people who if we loved it, we thought that other people would definitely love it as well, which felt right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you guys have developed.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
we were just saying while the song was playing that the one that we just played on the show, that you guys have developed some absolutely breathtaking hooks throughout your song. And I mean, there's definitely a difference between developing an instrumental hook and developing vocals that are really hooky and really grabbing you. Did you struggle with that at all, like approaching it from that different angle, or did the music translate really well that you were able to grab people in a whole new way?
We did, yeah. It was a real refinement process. It was taking things that before you could spend 2 or 3 minutes as an idea. You know, you don't have any wastage. You're like, oh, we do that, and then we can do this, and then we can do that. And then in reality, with vocals, you've got 20 seconds, 15, if that, you know, to really explore and deliver all the different versions and ideas around it. So I think that process of having gone through, you know, doing instrumental and working with these landmark instrumental bands and refining our sound, then transposing that into a vocal environment has meant that it has been a real journey. But again, we've been able to bring together a lot into a short period of time. But I mean, we were writing 6 or 7 minute tracks before, and now they're like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and you've really got to condense so much in. So yeah, it was a really great sort of studio integrated process with all the musicians involved, which was fantastic.
It sounds like a blast.
Thanks. Yeah, it was.
So you, Nick, you kind of answered this question before, but I kind of want to circle around back to it, saying that you guys were writing stuff that really appealed to you and stuff that you wanted to listen to, which I think is like one of the biggest fundamentals for like artists in like anything, just like do stuff that they want to do, right? But I'm curious on your personal philosophy on kind of like taking a chance and going in a wildly different direction, right? Where your band is always growing and always taking risks and always doing that. But just adding a whole instrument that hasn't been used before, was there any like fear that this is going to turn people or your fan base off? Or did you not just give a shit or anything? I'm curious, like what your personal philosophy is on like just bands doing like completely wildly different things because they think it's time to do so.
Yeah, it was definitely after that amount of time, you've kind of got used to saying this is a comfortable area of we're quite happy to be an instrumental band, and then because you feel comfortable, that immediately as you think this isn't right. I can't feel comfortable. I've got to make that step that people were saying 15, 20 years ago you should do it. And we were like, no way. I think working with and playing with a lot of instrumental bands, we've kind of, they've worn their heart on their sleeve by saying instrumental forever, and we've said not quite, we've never quite prescribed to that. Where we've done side projects, we've been able to explore vocals and things like that, and we definitely didn't want to alienate people. We just wanted to, as I say, it's a case of expanding that, because if we're going to keep building the universe, as it were, and creating all of these interconnections and some of the ideas that we've got to get people and work with people in the future, we're going to have to build that platform of vocals. We're going to have to build that platform of having shorter songs as well as longer songs, and making it so it's more direct, because I think that people will appreciate it when it's more sort of mainlined in, and you can harness it, that energy and that power, and that's something which the stoner rock, desert rock, sort of sludge doom world can do with is sort of harnessing and accessing the more punchiness and the delivery. And I think that was something that was an area that we felt like we had to jump, and we had to really go for it. Hence why Mitch from WHVN come on board as well. He wanted to feel and deliver that more direct punch, and he creates like the spine for the record with his drums and his delivery of the drums, which was so much more punchy before, whereas traditionally they would have been quite loose. So it was about sort of changing not only the payload but the delivery mechanism for that payload as well. So it was a double.
Yeah, and I think that shows, because this is one of those albums where you listen to it one time and you get a lot of stuff from it, but then it's really helpful to go back, because there are so many little like Cori and I were talking about the vocal deliveries in Get the Guns, right, which is the first track of the album, that are really just like hooks like right in that chorus, right?
Even if you're just like casually listening to it in the background, that hook, it just like, okay, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, and so anyways, so like I think it's one of those things that I think it's always a testament to the work that artists do when it's something that is both immediate and gives on repeat listens, right? You listen to it once and there you go. It's really fun to just spend time with those tracks which I hope is what y'all do in the first place.
Yeah, it is. It's trying to make it say, as you say, it's quite immersive. And it's not sort of use once and destroy type music. It's you can go back to it, and I think that was easier to do when you can create longer tracks and it's whatever else. But when you bring in the vocals and all of those harmonies that come with that were previously, as you said, like having access to that instrument, and how we had to step back to make way for an instrument which is so much higher in the mix than pretty much anything else. That created, a whole new layer of ways that we thought, well, how are people going to? We're listening to our own music differently now. And yeah, with Get the Guns, the opener is the hook to bring things in. And equally, we know that sort of some of the people that will be checking out this music will also be into bands that have been seminal in influencing or inspiring us to do music. Bands like Caius, people will be like, oh yeah, we know who they are, and sort of trying to bring that, into it as well with the hardcore and the metal side of things. It's trying to sort of bring it all together, and then finding a way of bringing the vocals in so that it's not sort of, there's a glass ceiling, which we just felt there's a glass ceiling there, which immediately feels like we want to smash that glass ceiling and do something different.
Hell yeah. Cori, do you have anything else?
Oh, I have my question, but do you have anything else before I ask my question?
No, I mean, I don't think I do. I think we covered most of everything.
Okay, well then I will ask the most important question of the entire interview. What is your favorite dinosaur?
My favorite dinosaur
Yes.
is probably, I'm going to say, oh, that's a good question, isn't it? I'm going to say pterodactyl, because it could fly, and a flying dinosaur is double delivery, isn't it? Really,
Double
imagine
terrifying.
It's a dinosaur, but it also flies. Like, what could be? You can't run away from that if it can also fly.
Unless you're in like some really thick trees, maybe then you're fine. And I'm in Oregon, so we got forest here, but other than that, no, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, you can't outrun it. It's just, it can just swoop and get you.
Exactly.
That's a good answer. That's a really good answer. Yeah. Amazing stuff. Nick, thank you so much for joining us on Pulse of the Maggots. Congratulations on the release of Push, everybody. Push came out on August 27th. It is available for streaming and buying and all that stuff now. Go pick it up. Go listen to it. It is well worth your time. Nick, thank you so much. Anything else that you want to leave? Parting words, wisdom, anything like that for?
Thanks so much. Well, as I'm on Pulse of the Maggots, I saw Slipknot in 2009. And a download, incredible show.
Yep.
And right at the very end, they stop playing, and then they start playing a desert rock riff, which is Thumb by Caius, right at the end. So everything's quiet and everyone's cheering, and it goes down and I just thought, those guys, they like stoner rock.
I love stoner rock. It's great.
We all do.
So
yeah,
good.
Right on.
How can you just just not vibe to some like fuzzy ass riffs? You know what I mean? Like it's just at the base level. That's what we all live. We all love riffs. At the end of the day.
I think I think they just wanted to play, some riffs like that and just be like, what would it sound like to like 90,000 people? That volume.
Yeah. We'll see if we can get a note in to see if Slipknot can add a stoner rock song on their next album or something like that. Obviously, because we have that much pull over here.
Oh yeah, totally. Don't they know who we are? No.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing you in Milton Keynes, because that was where Knotfest UK was hopefully going to be penned in, and with any luck, we'll be seeing them there. So that'll be awesome.
Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. If you're at Download in 2022, I will see you over there. I'm making my sojourn over there. I'm very, very excited. It's going to be the first big trip that I've done post-pandemic. I'm so excited.
Fantastic. Right on.
Yep.
Okay, thanks a lot. Really appreciate you having me. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out here and talk with us today, Nick.
Appreciate it. Thanks again.
Yep.